First, we're here to hear what is so important to have a healthy ecosystem. Please join us as we welcome Caleb Ofori-Boateng, who is a herpetologist, that is an amphibian and a reptile expert, and also the founder of conservation NGO Herb Conservation Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, Caleb.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Caleb Ofori-Boateng, and I'm also a research scientist with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the office at Kumasi Forestry Research Institute of Ghana. I had the privilege to be actually born and raised in a wildlife protected area, and this means that I grew up having such a very huge passion for wildlife conservation. And in 2005, after I finished my first degree, I became aware for the very first time that there was a group of animals called amphibians, frogs and toads, and they were going through a mass extinction crisis. And I was surprised that nothing was being said about them. And I have done 4 years studying in biology, and I didn't know anything about this, so I decided to do something about it. So for the past 5 to 10 years, I've been an advocate for amphibian conservation in Ghana and working with communities to restore habitats for endangered frog species. Now, I would like to say a little bit about one of the frog species that is so dear and so special to my heart. It's called the whistling frog. And it's called the whistling frog because obviously it makes whistling sounds. So like all of us young people who go out on date nights and try to, seduce people or try to get a date and all that, frogs do the same thing apparently. But in frog world, it's not how good you look. So if you are very handsome and tall and well built, it doesn't matter in frog world. It's all about your voice. It's all about how good you sound. And this frog uses whistling. That goes like. So if you whistle really nice, then you get a date for that night. And this really makes, oh, it's good. And this really makes this frog special. But another thing that makes it also really special is that for 40 years, it was assumed to be extinct. So for 40 years, we thought we actually lost this species. And finally, when we're doing our research as part of the job that I do with the Forestry Research Institute of Ghana, we found a very small population living in this forest in the Volta region, the Togo Volta Hills. And at the time, the population was so small. And then we realized that it's very dependent on aquatic ecosystem. So it lives in a stream just like a fish. And as a matter of what, if we don't have trees around those streams, it requires a certain specific microclimatic conditions, meaning that in the absence of trees along the forest, this frog did not have any chance to survive at all. And unfortunately, most of this forest was already gone. People have been farming and a lot of the trees have been cut down. So mostly as a hobby, I began working with these communities, taking weekends off from Kumasi to the Volta region and spending time with the local communities and reasoning out, co-creating solutions that could guarantee the long-term survival of these species. And today, as I speak, the communities have come together and they work with the whole West District Assembly to establish a community-based protected area, legally gazetted under the municipal laws, which is an area of about 10,000 acres of forest. Unfortunately, most of these forests have already been massively degraded by farming activities and stuff. And so one of the agenda of this group is to restore about 1,000 acres of this reserve. So we are doing 20,000 trees per year. And I'm so happy to say that at the beginning of this year, I was part of the volunteer group that actually planted the first 10,000 trees. And they are doing so well. In addition, we're working with other partners to make sure that the communities actually benefit from all the effort that they are putting into this frog protection. So probably the take-home point is that from my personal experience, is that we need to act. We need to do something. It's not just enough to be here for 2 days and hear all these wonderful things and not do anything about it. Frogs are not the most charismatic animals in Ghana, and people actually ridicule me for spending a career saving frogs. But I needed to act. And because I acted, trees are being planted, other threatening species are being preserved. So I would say that let's go out there and make sure that we do something to conserve our ecosystem and biodiversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caleb. Please give him a round of applause one more time. Now we move on to agriculture and the vital role of farmers in bringing about the change Africa and the world so desperately needs. I'd like to introduce you to Efriye Obing Fosu Ekia, who is Miss Agriculture Ghana. Beautiful Miss Agriculture Ghana 2018. Miss Afriye is an agriculturalist from Ghana's Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Afriye, please give her a round of applause. Our queen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, I would like us to talk about family farming. I won't take much of your time. We, the family farmers, we are the main source of food production in Ghana. Yes, those of us who own just less than 2 acres of land, we are the main food production in Ghana. Though there are large ones and also medium ones who are into larger farm size and plantations. We are sometimes referred to as small-scale farmers or smallholder farmers. Statistics show that 90% of small holdings are small-scale farmers, and you know, this is why most of the time when you hear big men, directors, ministers of agri speak, they say that agriculture is the backbone of Ghana's economy. That is because of the 90% of us who are into agriculture. And I also use that term because I want to be a big woman in agriculture one day. We, the small-scale farmers, we boost our local economies by generating income and also by generating employment, providing regular income from the scale of farm produce, which are thus spent on education, housing, clothing, and etc. Our marketplaces are crowded because of us. Kudos to everyone along the value chain, from farmers to aggregators to processors, who help put meal on our table, and to us, the consumers. Without you, there will be no sales. When I was a teacher in a rural area, I remember most of our women, apart from farming, they also acted as aggregators. You ask a child, what does your mom do? And he will tell you, oh, me mama or kokwainso, meaning that she goes to buy food supplies and then send them to the urban areas to sell. And most women in Accra and also other areas that are called pre-urban or peri-urban areas do this, collecting food produce from small-scale farmers, aggregating them, and then selling them. When you visit our local market, we have Bantihima, Bodiahima, Ebrohima. These are all works that our women do in making sure that small-scale produce reach our consumers. According to the FAO, 56% of the world's agricultural products are produced on 56% of the land by the over 500 million family farms, representing over 98% of farming holdings worldwide. Imagine hearing a dish that you know so much from childhood, any dish in Ghana, maybe kontomire, or seeing a dish that you've enjoyed throughout your life on the menu, only to taste the food and realize it is missing a key ingredient to give you that taste that you've been yearning for from childhood. We family farmers, are the ones who preserve our traditional food, in addition to contributing to balanced diet and safeguarding agrobiodiversity, and also the sustainable use of natural resources. The importance of family farmers cannot be underrated, since it's closely linked to national and global food security. However, I cannot leave this podium without mentioning just two of the challenges that we face that are very dear to me. The very first one is the dwindling nature of our lands. Most of our farmlands are being lost to estate development and also due to urbanization in our rural areas, which is an issue that is very sensitive, and I wonder how it can be solved, in Ghana especially. And the next one is how difficult it is for us to get access to credit. But thanks be to our extension officers and all, we've gotten to know that usually we don't get funds because of our records keeping and our bookkeeping habits, which we are working on, and through that, some of us have been able to gain loans. But then most people forget about the high rates of these credits in Ghana. I heard that there are lower rates in other countries, so I Googled, and I realized that in Ghana, right now, in 2019, our interest rate stands at 34.5%. And 3 years ago, it was 42.84%. And previously, that was just last year, it was 35%, as compared to other countries, like South Africa, which has only 10%, and Kenya, 12%. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture has some ways tried to help us boost our potential in our business by flagship programs, that's the Planting for Food and Jobs, Rearing for Food and Jobs, and also the extensive extension work. The Planting for Food and Jobs has 5 main pillars. That is the seed, the fertilizer, extension services, marketing, and e-agriculture. This year, our theme for Farmers' Day celebration is enhancing small-scale agriculture through agribusiness development. Let's all join hands in helping boost the business of small-scale farmers by patronizing our products. Thank you so much.
Indeed, it is very important that we all join hands and encourage our small-scale farmers. Thank you very much to our Queen. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you for your inspiring words. And that leads us perfectly into the first plenary of the day. Join me to welcome a very special lady, Nora Beramuni. She's a senior forestry officer at FAO who is coming to us from the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization. She has offered to share with us human stories which will collectively demonstrate why the next 10 years are literally the decade to act. Please join me to welcome Nora Beramuni on stage.
Good morning. Bonjour. Sabah al-khair. Buenos dias. Buen dia. Okay. Akwaba, everybody. I'm really humbled and very, very happy to be with you this morning to talk about a very, very interesting subject. I think we had 2 inspiring colleagues who spoke before us, and it was not just, let's say, a coincidence, by coincidence. One spoke, Caleb, spoke about biodiversity, the importance of biodiversity, the frog, and second, Miss Agriculture spoke about family farming and the family farmers. She is a family farmer herself. She grows mushrooms. So, and we are here to talk about the UN Decade to Act. We have 2 decades in 1 decade, actually. The UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration and the UN Decade on Family Farming. Both are being implemented at the same time, and we need really to build synergy between the 2 of them. But we have heard so much, and we have experienced already different UN decades in the past, maybe even in the present. So what is special about these 2 decades? implemented and acting in one. In order to respond to this question, I will give you the floor to talk about it, but I would like to introduce to you 5 special guests, wonderful panelists coming from different backgrounds to tell us about it, and then we can keep the conversation going with you. And then second, understand also what they are contributing and how they are contributing, and how you, everyone, each of you in the room and outside this room will contribute. And we will mainly focus our talk and our exchange, because we are in Africa, to talk about Africa. So please join me to welcome our panelists. Dr. Musonda Mumba, please, from the United Nations Environment Program. We have Mrs. Elke Steinmetz. I don't know if I pronounce it well. She's the Deputy Head of Forest Unit at the Ministries of Environment in Germany. We have Stuart McGuinness, who is really also very well known. Stuart from the IUCN. Mr. Amat Pat Sen from IFAD, from our sister agency, IFAD. And last but not least, Nelson. Nelson, where are you? Nelson Ajimang from the Coalition for Farmers in Ghana. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Okay. Okay, so I would like to invite first Dr. Musonda Mumba from UNEP. She's the focal point at UNEP of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. I would like to invite her to kindly tell us what this UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration is about. Is it about tree campaigns? What do you think? Tell me, yes or no? No. Is it about communications? No, they say. So please, Musonda, what do you think? What it is about?
Thank you very much, Nora. So happy to be here in Accra, and so good to see you all today. So this decade, I think, let's face it, we are in Ghana, we are in the proximity of the Sahel, we have seen the news. I mean, not so long ago, we were looking at the news and listening to the BBC, CNN, etc., showing us pictures of Siberia burning in the middle of summer. I mean, we don't hear much of that. We heard about the burning in the Amazon. Last year, forests across Canada, across Europe were burning. I mean, what is that telling us? Something is happening within these very ecosystems where we live. And then we see pictures of flooding. We see what happened in Mozambique, in Malawi, in Zimbabwe. In really successive period of literally 2 weeks, Cyclone Idai lands. People are flooded, people die, ecosystems are decimated. Within a couple of weeks, Cyclone Kenneth landed again. I mean, how are people then obviously trying to build their resilience and to survive within these changing but mostly degraded spaces? So what we see, and that just explanation is, I've taken you across the world from the tundra in the north, in spaces that have permafrost, to Africa, to the savannas. And let's go further south, and we go down all the way to Antarctica. So what does it tell us? It tells us this is a global opportunity. So the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration was passed by our governments, member states, but with the champion being the government of El Salvador on the 1st of March. It was passed by member states because governments are sitting and representing us in the United Nations system and at the General Assembly. But they have constituencies. People have voted for them. And also there's an expectation, what is it that can be done? This decade is about you and me. It's about people in these very environments where we live and where we exist. But more so, it's about our very survival. And I think we've been hearing this last day about how our spaces, be it grasslands, we've seen people from pastoral communities here, be it people who live on islands, be it people who are coming from forest landscape, be it people that are coming from dry lands. It's this mosaic of these ecosystems that we're talking about. So this is really about restoration. This is about how do we recover? And also, more importantly, and I think, Nora, you mentioned this yesterday, it's also about conservation. We have sacred forests, we have all these sacred groves and spaces and national parks and really iconic spaces. How do we conserve what we have? Because if we destroy everything, there is no guarantee that it will survive or it will recover, let alone. So for me, this decade is a moment, an opportunity where we begin to have a conversation, where we begin to act, where we begin to do. And it's also building on a lot of things that have been done. So for us, also, the reason it's also a partnership between UN Environment and the FAO is because we bring together two agencies that have a real incredible network and mandate, looking at food systems, looking at agriculture, which is really one of the drivers of change across the world, but also looking at the environment as a whole. But also, how do we tell the story? So the role of advocacy is very, very critical to this decade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Musonda. So you heard it's about all ecosystems, not just forests. It's about people, yes, and it's a great opportunity to drive restoration. And tell me, Ahmad, what is about the UN Decade on Family Farming that is so special? Tell us about it and what are your expectations from it? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. So I think here today we gather as the people of the world to talk about also something extremely important, is feeding ourselves. So feeding ourselves, nowadays we are 7 billion people. In 2050 will be 9 billion. And currently we have 8 million people still living in poverty, hunger. And more will come with the climate change, 1.7 billion estimated by 2030. And by 2030 also 38 million in Africa. So this call for more production. But when we talk about family farming and production, which we as IFAD and also the UN system, we talk about sustainable production, climate resilient production, low emission agriculture. And this is also to achieve the sustainable development goals. These are bold goals that all countries, head of states agreed in 2015, and we have to deliver by 2030. On top of that, we have also the Paris Climate Deal. We cannot live currently the same way we do, because we need to consume and produce in a more sustainable way. So world smallholder farmers have a central role. Currently, production are mainly coming from smallholder farmers, particularly from Africa. And nowadays, with our new lifestyle, most of the largest and rapid growing economies currently are in Africa, world. And there is a lot of food, and it's not now normal that we import rice, food. The bill is 30 billion every year. You have lands, we have water, and we need to change the way we do business with smallholder farmers. It requires investment, it requires a lot of funding, unlock this potential see agriculture as opportunities, not constraint. Opportunities for jobs, opportunities for women, and close the gender gap for youth particularly. Because all these young men who are coming in the cities, going to Europe and looking for opportunities, there are opportunities, but agriculture, smallholder agriculture need to be attractive. We cannot do business like our grandfather used to do, 1 century ago with the daba, this kind of tool. It has to be modernized, productive, low emission, and competitive. So I think the UN decade is just achieving the SDGs. And I would like also to challenge the audience today if some of you or all of you know the 17 SDGs. Can we count them from 1 to 17? And maybe I will just give the floor to our moderator, and we try. So those 17 SDGs need to be achieved in an accelerated manner with all communities of the world, particularly smallholder farmers, through land, water, renewable energy nexus. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Amat. I think what you've just said speaks to what Musonda was saying, actually. You are talking about sustainable management of, let's say, sustainable agriculture, climate-smart agriculture, good sustainable production, and it speaks to what Stewart has trying, one of the main players who has been trying to bring the different sectors actually together within what we call the concept of FLR, forest landscape restoration, or call it forest and landscape restoration, bringing agriculture, harmonized and working in harmony with the other sectors instead of putting pressure on forests and other natural lands, like, for example, pastures and grasslands. So maybe I come back to you, Stewart, to tell us, it took us, more than 2 decades to make sure that this landscape restoration concept brought to the light, and now it will take us 1 more decade, but we need to act very fast. And that's why I think these 2 decades, family farming and ecosystem restoration, maybe could give us this chance finally. 2 decades lost, but then we have 1 decade in 2 decades by 2030 for the SDGs to be implemented. So maybe, Stewart, could you tell us, how do you see, what are your expectations of these 2 decades? And linking it also to the great work you have been doing with all the partners on forest and landscape restoration.
Thank you very much, Musonda. You're absolutely right. It was, I think, 1999. There was Nora Wale Adeleke, who's somewhere out there. Myself and a few others were sitting actually talking about how we develop up a more integrated approach to restoring degraded forest lands, and actually at the meeting in Segovia in Spain coined the phrase forest landscape restoration. So it took us 2 decades to work that through, to come up with the tools that we have, like roam assessments and the barometer, and really, and critically, absolutely critically, I think, to be able to make sure that that countries and subnational authorities own the idea and could really drive this forward, because this cannot, if there's one major lesson I would say from forest landscape restoration, is this can be facilitated and supported by global action, but it cannot be coordinated, it cannot be controlled, it has to be rooted at local, at subnational, at national level. That's where the real action happens. So to come to your point, it's taken us 2 decades. Of course, we don't have 2 decades now, we've got 1 decade, so the challenge is actually more intense. So if there's one thing that my expectations is that we don't spend a lot of time thinking about actually how we put in great governance structures and super international coordination mechanisms and globally driven communication. And I think actually what we need to do is I would say we adopt the slogan of delivery defines us. That's what's going to make the real change. If we see real change on the ground, real delivery on the ground. And I think I think it is good that these 2 decades coincide together, because they make such good sense that being able to support, and I'll give you just one small example, 35% of land at the minute is either degraded or undergoing degradation processes. So Amate does not achieve his goals unless you actually address the issues of the degradation of soil ecosystems. Many times do we think of soil as an ecosystem. Usually think of soil as a substrate to provide nutrients and water to plants. It's not. It's an ecosystem. So unless we address ecosystem degradation, we don't achieve the family farm decade. But at the same stage, that ecosystems aren't degraded out of malfeasance generally, or people wanting to go out and deliberately degrade. They're driven out because people don't have other options. They're degraded because people don't have other options. So I think the other thing is, to me, ecosystem degradation is about a livelihood issue. And so so that coincides together. And then the one final thing I'll just wrap up. So this means that if we are actually if delivery is going to define us, if we are going to see real change, ambitious change, then that means we need to break out of our silos. We really need to see that sort of integration that Amat talked about. Yeah? And the final thing I'll actually highlight, there's a 3rd decade. Does anybody know what it is? There's a decade of ocean science. And we've also got to look at the issues of coastal, the impacts on coastal as well, because that also influences us. Yeah, the IPCC 1.5 degree report highlighted that we've got a real problem with coral reefs already. Coral reefs that by the time we hit 1.5 degrees, 95% of coral reefs will be gone. And that's not just a loss of biodiversity, that is a loss of livelihood options and actually barriers for livelihood resilience, or to support livelihood resilience for multiple coastal communities. So that is another reason. So this issue of really integrating, focusing on the local, enabling the local, really ensuring that we're working with national demands and local opportunities. That's where I think the real promise in these decades lie.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Now I turn to Elke from the German Federal Ministries of Environment. What are your expectations, Elke, hearing about all what has been said? First, as the Ministries of Environment in your country, but also as a development partner, who have been also a great supporter of the AFR 100 and the Bond Challenge and many other initiatives on restoration in the globe. Please.
Thank you very much, Nora, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you on this important issue on behalf of the German government. Well, listening to all my colleagues here on the panel, actually I would like to echo a lot of things, but I will not do it in the course of time. But I just want to say that I agree with everything which was said already. To my point of view, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration is not about creating something new. It is an umbrella to get together all efforts which are already ongoing. This is my point of view. And maybe some of you know that not the original idea, but the kickoff for the decade came out of a Bond Challenge meeting. And I think from that on, it's just logical that global initiatives like the Bond Challenge, regional initiatives like AFR 100, national efforts, subnational measures, down to local approaches should all be united under such a decade. Well, Musunda, you already mentioned it's our decade. It's the member states of the UN who decided about it, and we approved it through a resolution. So it is our responsibility, the responsibility of the UN member states. But I think it's also our all common decade. Let's make it to our own decade. Everyone who's related to ecosystem restoration, everyone should make it to its own decade and use the political momentum to leverage the impact of measures and actions. Regarding my expectations, I have a picture in my mind, or a metaphor. Maybe you know the Paternoster lifts or elevators. It's an old-fashioned kind of very nice elevators, instantly running, bringing you from whatever floor you want to the next floor. So you can jump in, get lifted up, and get out. And I think this is, for me, it's a good picture for what I expect from the decade. It is to lift actions up, to raise impact, and to leverage restoration efforts. And importantly, to stay in the picture, I think it is most important to have a suitable matching entry point or an entry floor to stay in that picture, taking every action to another level. So this is, in a metaphoric way speaking, my idea of the decades.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elke, with your metaphor that really helps us relate and link and motivate us and elevate us. I turn to my friend Nelson, who is representing the Coalition of Farmers in Ghana, so Akwaba again. And I would like to ask you kindly, what is your expectation from these decades? Both of the decades, the UN family one and the other one on the ecosystem restoration, and how do you think it could work for the farmers in Ghana?
I actually represent Coalition of Farmers Ghana, and also I facilitate the Innovation Working Group of the World Farmers Organization in Rome. So actually they asked me also to come here, and it's very important to make that point, because for us, what we're talking about with farmers is about bottom-up approaches, whether local, national, regional, and global, and top-down, circular, cyclical. So all sectors are to be involved. On the issue of the 2 decades, for us, synergies are key. Synergies that are relevant to farmers in both decades. And this is about being comprehensive in whatever actions or interventions that we want to take. So for us, to synergize the two as a system, we are looking at it as a comprehensive agricultural ecosystem initiative or restoration, in which we identify the roles of farmers and especially their representative institutions as rallying point in the issues of ecosystem degradation, ecosystem restoration, the role that farmers and their institutions play in conservation, in environmental services, especially those that are ignored or overlooked and are not paid for and compensated, and sometimes even other people take the compensation for what farmers have done. And it's very important to look at these in these 2 decades and in the interventions that go ahead. At the center of that, we want to see initiatives be farmer-driven. Farmers be in the seat, the driver's seat to drive, to mainstream farmers, go beyond tokenism. In many times, researchers are a bit guilty of it, whether national research systems or global systems, because at the international level, I also talk about that we many times insist we have consulted, included farmers, and when you go into it, it's just tokenism. At the design level, farmers need to be at the table as part of the system from A to Z, and not when you have already designed and you handpick some farmers that you cannot trace. The issue of traceability is key for transparency and accountability. So for us as COFAG and going back to the global level, we now have frameworks and models that we use to gauge whether research on interventions, whether you have been actually inclusive, mainstream farmers, whether the farmer involvement can be traced and retracked back. These are evaluated by us. And if you want a partnership, we will look at it. We have models for this. And this is important for us, Nora, in these 2 decades, because a lot needs to be corrected in that direction, so as to be able to get farmers' key role, and also the ownership. When it comes to especially research, we are worried about lack of adoption of research or interventions, especially by farmers. And the reason this happens is this weakness that we have, that they don't feel that they own both the initiation, the design, the processes, and the outcomes of research, because they are only added on as an aftermath, and they are objects of study. So if we want to improve all that, and if you need help to improve that, you need to get back to the farmers' institutions. Of course, many farmers are not in the institutions, but we need to encourage them to belong, because even for stronger, powerful sectors of our lives, including our economies, including business, they all belong to institutions. So solidarity is key, and we need to strengthen those existing institutions to do better, so that we'll have what we expect to have, especially in these 2 decades that are ahead of us.
Thank you so much. That was really great. Yeah, to remind us that these decades are the decades of farmers, first of all. Yeah? And I think something that we didn't say also before, because normally we should have had here another speaker, Mamadou Diakite, who is the coordinator of the AFR 100, who spoke, it was yesterday? Yes, I think yesterday morning we had another plenary session on the UN decade within the AFR 100 community and family. So he reminded us that the UN decade on ecosystem restoration was proclaimed in March 2019, also thanks to the fertile ground and the leadership of African leaders who came up together in November 2018 during the CBD COP, where they have put, at the ministerial conference, they have put together even already what we call a Pan-African action agenda on ecosystem restoration for increased resilience. Ecosystems from forests to grasslands to fisheries to wetlands and so on. So I wanted just to say that on his behalf, because he couldn't really come, he was a bit sick, so I'm sorry for that. But without further ado, I would like to give you the floor, people. You should be also the UN decades actors. So what are your expectations, comments, questions, challenges? Because they were challenging you. So I see one hand here and another hand here. Can mics, are there any mics? Otherwise I can come down. Okay, I'm coming down with pleasure, a bit of sports. So I will start with my sister first. She was before, and then I come back to my brother. Okay? Yes.
So my comment is we talk too much. Those who are in power are too comfortable. Those who are in power need to transfer their resources to the local communities, to youth, employ youth. How beautiful is it if we youth can learn from each other?
Loud and clear. Great. I go down. I think our colleague is from Nigeria. Yes, sir. Now I have a dress from Nigeria too.
Thank you very much. We've heard a lot, starting from ecosystem restoration to family farming. We can keep on talking. But the underlying factor is whether there are opportunities or problems there on land. So the fundamental issue is the rights and tenure, however you look at it. In many countries, government, whether at the national or state level, are the custodians of land. However, they garnish it and make it look beautiful, that land is accessible, but is it accessible to the family? There is less resources and there's growing demand, even at the family level. The public sector tries as much as possible to push resources from top to bottom, but many times the communities have to resort to private sector access to resources, and they demand title to land that they can rely on. Across many countries, you have different laws, different rights. The question is, a lot has been done. Stuart will agree with me because he asked the question in a plenary session this morning and gave an example in Kenya. Many countries have made progress, but many are far behind. Could there be a strategy, an underlying principle, not to actually oppose the system in terms of rights to land, the laws or edict, but can there be a strategy, underlying principle to go around this for the ground level, the community, the family, to have access, all right, to have that right and tenure that can actually push governments to do more in the communities and the families to have access and title, tenure to land. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So youth, jobs, employment, tenure to land, access. And I think even if we have these great voluntary guidelines for land tenure, for forest, land, forest, fisheries, etc., this is not enough. We need to have things going on the ground. I see my dear sister here.
Okay, thank you. Concerning the institutions which farmers need to be part of, I want to know how accessible are they? And there are so many farmers who are not even aware that there are institutions that help them to be solidified in a way that they can put the agenda to the government or authorities in charge of farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm here, and then... Is there somebody there? Yeah. I will go that way. Yeah.
Voilà, merci beaucoup. Et moi, j'ai ma question, en tout cas, à l'ensemble des présentateurs, parce que je ne sens pas véritablement la prise en compte au même titre que les autres secteurs des zones à écosystème fragile. Je fais allusion au Sahel. En tout cas, et même au Sahel, les zones pastorales sont beaucoup plus fragiles que d'autres. Sinon, je sens véritablement la concentration sur les autres zones, autres que les zones à écosystème fragile. Je ne sais pas si je me fais comprendre. En tout cas, je ne sens pas que peut-être il y a des spécialistes dans le domaine du pastoralisme au niveau de FIDA, FAO, etc. Pas seulement l'agriculture avec grand A. Je sais qu'il y a des docteurs vétérinaires, je sais qu'il y a des agronomes, mais est-ce qu'il y a véritablement des spécialistes en pastoralisme pour pouvoir tenir compte de ces aspects, de ces écosystèmes fragiles, véritablement fragiles, afin de les récupérer, afin de les préserver? Merci beaucoup.
Merci, merci beaucoup. Vive les pastoralistes qui ont aussi leur mot à dire.
I just would like to underline one issue, which is from yesterday we heard that the key terminology was the decades. We are, how to say it, we are looking that the decades are passing, and each time we are telling that we have to wait that another decade is coming to see changes. I think we are talking a lot about this, and the changes are not there. And just new concepts, new terminologies are coming. More or less, if you can see the substance, are more or less the same. That's why I think hopefully that by 2030, we cannot see that we will rise once again that we have to wait 10 years in order to see the results and the changes. That is, I think, that's why we should more focus on the ground, on the realities on the ground. And we should not rise each time new issues that should be resolved. We don't need to wait for that. I think we should to act, because if we are acting for changing the systems of governance, the land tenure systems, it's a long time. We need a long time. That's why we need to act according to what we have now. And the other issue, and I think it's important to start thinking about not throwing the money through the windows, and go to the field, go to the ground and act. That's the most important issue.
Thank you very much. Call for urgent action. I'm going that way. I will take just 2 other points. Sorry. Oh my goodness me, you are challenging me. I see 4, but then 30 seconds each one, please, please. Because you are the youth, I give you all the mic.
Thank you very much. My name is Olupot. I'm from Uganda, and I do farming. So my question is about including farmers in making decisions. So I think 2 weeks ago, there was a movement about retiring the hoe in Africa so that we can industrialize our agriculture. But I really don't know if farmers were consulted about this, because we work with rural farmers and they can't afford to mechanize agriculture, but also the disadvantages of mechanizing agriculture. So I like the point that he brought up, that they try to engage farmers. So I really wanted to know if that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Equipment, yeah, because stop romanticizing our farmers. They need mechanization too. Of course, the good mechanization. Yes? Quickly.
Thank you very much. So my name is Richmond Kennedy Kwaku. I work with an NGO called Plastic Punch, raising awareness on the dangers of plastics and coming up with sustainable solutions. So a quick one, we are more into the awareness creation space. Our project started, we are also more about protection of sea turtles. Now I'm going to say a little bit and link to my main question. So our project started when we went for a turtle monitoring section. Out of the 6 turtles we saw, 5 of them were dead. Considering the role sea turtles play in the ecosystem, we felt it's very important. And one of the awareness strategies we carry out are beach cleanups. Now, I want to mention that turtles are protected by law in Ghana, yet in some communities, these turtles we saw dead were plastic, entangled in plastic ingestion, etc. Some communities are actually poaching these turtles for food, medicine, etc. Now, I want to say, for action and realistic way forward, if we don't add that component of enforcement, law enforcement, all this we are talking about will never work. So it's a very important factor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Law enforcement enabling environment. Yes.
Ok, merci. Je suis Dominique Ndamana. Je travaille pour l'UICN et je viens du Cameroun. Depuis hier, nous avons cette salle pleine parce qu'on parle de la restauration en Afrique. Et aujourd'hui, c'est le même sujet. Nous sommes très nombreux. Ça voudrait dire que le sujet est important pour l'Afrique. Depuis une décennie à peu près, la Banque mondiale a initié des études avec des chercheurs très percutants sur les questions des mines. Et les résultats aujourd'hui montrent que l'Afrique est un scandale minier. Je prends l'exemple de mon pays, le Cameroun. Donc les résultats préliminaires sont officiels. Il y a plus de 300 terres rares, les miniers savent ce que ça veut dire, qui sont identifiées aujourd'hui. Il y a un peu de bousculade au niveau du ministère des Relations extérieures des pays ou bien des institutions qui demandent à installer au Cameroun. Je suis sûr d'une chose, c'est que ce n'est pas pour la restauration, c'est beaucoup plus pour l'exploitation. Face à cela, pour les 10 prochaines années, est-ce qu'il y a un autre modèle de penser au partenariat avec le secteur privé et notamment les miniers, parce qu'on sait les empreintes écologiques que l'exploitation des mines apporte au niveau, n'est-ce pas, de nos écosystèmes. Dans la forêt, dans les savanes, dans les mines, il y a les mines partout et les pays aujourd'hui sont prêts peut-être à laisser les objectifs de restauration pour l'exploitation, n'est-ce pas, de ces mines. Quelle approche pour les prochaines 10 années? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. On a parlé du plastique, hein, et on a parlé des mines. So, the drivers of degradation. Ça veut dire quoi? Ça veut dire que vous êtes en train de dire que normalement c'est très important aussi d'aborder, pas d'aborder, mais vraiment d'en finir avec ces causes à la racine de la dégradation qui pourraient permettre de conserver ce qui est à conserver et d'autre part, bien sûr, restaurer ce qui est à restaurer. Il y a cette jeune dame. Oui.
Okay. So, my name is Sia. My issue is, yes, we have policies and we have to involve farmers in planning and also in implementation too. We have to teach them. But I've realized that as we teach them how to implement it, we need to let them know the basic fundamental rules of it. Is it good? Is it bad? If they are going to use it in excess, is it going to destroy the soil? So someone knows he uses maybe NPK. It will boost productivity. So they just add more without doing it in the right way, and now it ends up destroying the soil. So as we approach it, let's make it a holistic approach, where we add not just agriculture, but we should look at the health implications too, and make it sustainable for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have been insisting, so you will have the last word in the audience. Brief, please, concise.
My name is Charlie. I can say I'm a farmer. I just want to cut to the crux of the issue that was discussed and I think is voiced by both the members and the audience. We're both concerned with the idea that the role of smallholder farmers, in particular youth, because in the case of Africa, we see that that will be the future in driving both of these decades. We have 70 to 80% of youth in Africa now under the age of 35. So my question is, with the policy and the legislations of these 2 decades, how do we ensure that that is actually targeting the desired people that we're in fact trying to empower? So one of the gentlemen mentioned traceability. What mechanisms, what actually accountable mechanisms are in place so we can ensure that these policies, these projects are actually reaching the desired user or the people we are in fact trying to empower?
Thank you very much. And with this, I think I will go back Big applause to our audience, please. And my apologies, really, if I didn't give you the mic. I wanted just to have at least a flavor of what... Sorry. Yesterday. I was not here yesterday. I will give you later, sorry. I will just give the floor back to our panelists. First, I would start with Ahmad. There were so many questions about the farmers and the employment and the land tenure. And so what are you going to do with that if you want really that this UN decade, if we want that UN decades really succeed?
Thank you very much. I think these questions are fundamental and extremely important for the UN decade. So as you all know, we have plans, we have strategy. They are fantastic. You know, the SDGs in countries, you have national development plan, sector plan, all of them are fantastic, written by experts like all of us, consulted communities for days, months, years. So those documents are there, that they need to be implemented. If you want to implement it, you need money. So some of these plans, for example, I just give a concrete example of good policies that are inclusive. For the case of IFAD, 50% of our investment will go to Africa, 30% post-conflict countries. So in each project, 50% need to be youth sensitive or youth focused, nutrition sensitive, 50%, 25% gender focused. So there are some kind of targets which if you don't put it into the proposal of $100 million or $200 million, it won't be approved. So from the beginning, it is already in the paper. So it's there, it is budgeted. So now the money is not a problem. I think there is no shortage of money in this world, and it is documented. From institutional investors, pension, insurance, the market money is there. But what is lacking is de-risked and bankable project. If you don't have a good project, you will not get the money because people are sitting on their money. You bring a bright idea, a good business model, de-risk it, it will work. So smallholder farmers are seen as risky business. Right now, our role is to de-risk them. To de-risk them by putting them into a group association, cooperative, small and medium enterprises. So they can also, along the value chain, be part of it. Along this value chain, you bring young people. It has to be attractive. And currently, in all African cities, you have, in Francophone countries, what we call les agriculteurs du weekend. All these people who are living in the cities that have a plot 100 kilometers far away. The weekend they are there, they make money on top of the money they receive as a government official or a businessman. So if those people are making money, then young people should be also making money if they have rural young people or not. So we have to make sure that the money reach those people by coming with funding, de-risking this, and maybe I will just finish with the last one, which is more the Sahel strategy and mechanization. Again, our leaders, whenever they meet, they're saying it is not normal that we produce raw materials, export it, and buy it again 10 times just because of packaging and processing. So even if you don't have land, you can be part of the value chain. You can process, you can package and take it to the market. You just need the right brand. Today you go to the European market or American market, do we have African brands of rice, cocoa, and so on? Limited. Why not? It's possible. Factories, mechanization, light, equipment, not those tractors that cost millions of dollars. But we have to do research, bring those technology, make sure that this is getting to the market. So I'll stop there, and I think this is the only way we can also keep our youth, gender, and also boost our economies.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ahmad. Stuart, did you hear the questions? I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, because the acoustics.
So there's just a couple of points I'd like to reinforce. I thought there's some very, very, very astute and to the point comments. I really like the first comment about we need to talk less and we need to get on and deliver. So I'll reinforce this point. Delivery defines us. Let that be our sort of badge of honor. Let's see what we deliver rather than just how much we've talked about it and how much we've promoted it. And just on this point of jobs, and I think this, again, if you want to look at real delivery and if you want to look at sort of changes, jobs, now, in the bond, if I can go back to the bond challenge, there's 60 countries who've committed to the bond challenge. My organization's been working with 13 of those at the minute, really to try and understand what the bond challenge has meant. And of those 13 countries, we've documented 350,000 new jobs, 1/3 new jobs. Where we've gone into detail with some countries like Rwanda, we've looked at that from a gender differentiated perspective, and we see that that's both for men and for women and even, and definitely those are jobs for young people. If I think back to a very famous example of ecosystem restoration in the Lewis Plateau, there they improved the employment rate by 24%. And that actually increased household incomes by 300%. So this is, I think this point's been made several times. Ultimately, at the heart of these different decades lie benefits. If these benefits do not come down to individual households, individual communities, then I think we have actually failed. Two other quick points. The issue on rights and tenure, absolutely. We cannot, unless you actually clarify rights and tenure and how that moves forward, then it is going to be difficult to actually deal with degradation processes and being able to reverse that. In saying that, there was a fantastic session this morning which actually highlighted dealing with rights and tenure doesn't mean actually having to undergo a full constitutional reform. There are many, many effective ways that actually allow us to address dealing with rights and tenure in an efficacious way. So I think that has to be actually part of the process in many situations. And finally, this issue in pastoralism, I think it's going to be really important as we move forward with the decade that we don't just try and have one big general decade or sort of move on ecosystems writ large. There are different ecosystems in different communities and different livelihoods depending on those ecosystems. And I think definitely we will need to see a suite of communities of practice at national level and hopefully at regional level start to emerge that actually can address these in an effective way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Elke?
Yeah, thank you, Nora, and thank you to all the questions and comments, which are very valuable. My answers might not satisfy everyone because I understand and see the issue of the big distance between political level and local level. But I just would like to plea for trust and respect for both sides and trust that whatever political level, also in the development cooperation does, has this in mind. So this is kept, really. Yes, I can tell you a little bit about what Germany is intending to do with the decade, to give you a picture of what are our concrete ideas. Already now, Germany is supporting UNEP and FAO in the preparatory phase for the decade. Additionally, the International Climate Initiative will come out with a thematic call for proposals in the course of the Climate COP in Santiago. And this call will have a window for a 15 to 20 million euro program on the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And thank you very much for reminding us again and again and again on the importance of youth being integrated in concepts and decision making. And I hope my colleague from the ICIS Secretariat, which is here with me, listens to me, that we should have definitely a component on youth in this specific program that we are going to set up. Additionally, I can tell you that Bonn as city will play an important role in the decade. This is our intention. As I mentioned, the Bonn Challenge was a kickoff point for the decade, but it's not only the name of the city. Bonn as UN city has evolved into a forest city, actually. Many important institutions aside UNCCD and UNFCCC are located in Bonn, like FSC, European Forest Institute, UN-RED, GLF. And there's, I think, a great potential to develop it into a forest and landscape and ecosystem restoration city. So we as German government will strongly support this development. That's for now.
Thank you, Elke, for these very good news and encouraging news that are speaking to the comments and the also the requests of the audience. Nelson, please.
Yeah, I heard about the lady was talking about visibility for farmers' organizations. Clearly, admittedly, farmers' institutions are as vulnerable as the farmers that they represent. And understandably. So there is need of capacity building and all that. But irrespective of that challenge, they exist. And if you're interested in finding them, you can find them from a local to national to global levels. It's always possible to find them. If you finish and you want to talk to me. Also with the youth aspect and even women farmers, institutions are also building up. Now we have a lot of emerging, the gentleman who came from talks from Uganda. You might have in Uganda already young farmers who are also part of the World Farmers Organization. So that is building up women farmers and other sectors as well. We even have now an interface between smallholder farmers and commercial farmers. Within COFAG, we have smallholder farmers. We have also a network of commercial farmers. Bringing the synergies, you know, there should be the symbiosis and the benefits of how the commercial farmers are able to grow, taking along the smallholder farmers. So we have joint interventions where we try to find the synergies and the benefits as well. So these are all issues that we all need to speak to. The gentleman talked about traceability. Of course, as farmers institutions, we have built our own system of traceability. If you came into partnership with that, we have a model we call Meridov, which we can make available because it's actually available. It was designed by COFAG. It's bottom-up, designed in Ghana, sent into the World Farmers Organization through the Innovation Working Group, which I facilitate there, and it has been incorporated. So if you want a partnership, we have that model that we can all use to work along to achieve traceability, transparency, and accountability, and make sure that it's bottom-up, farmer-driven, farmer-mainstreamed, and all inclusivity, and all the things we want to ensure. So from design level to implementation to monitoring and evaluation. If the global system want to adopt or adapt some of these things, they are available and they can be used for that purpose.
Thank you very much, Nelson, for your also contributions and showing how you could support these partnerships really developed and maybe developing these networks here with those who want to talk to you, because you are not just coordinating the farmers in coalition in Ghana, but also facilitating, also you are part of the members of the World Coalition. So may I give now the floor to Musonda. After all these reflections, these comments, and also the contributions of our dear panelists, what would you do? What are you going to do? Because we are already in the design. It's not yet late. We are in the design of the decade. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nora, and really great listening to my colleagues and the contributions. And it was just wonderful and refreshing to hear from the people in the audience. And I just want to say, I mean, this decade is going to effectively take officially start in January 2021. However, let me just pose a little bit of a challenge. Thank you so much, Yia, for your comment on the issue of integration and looking at the landscape in a more holistic way, because landscapes are connected. The reality is, let's just talk about disaggregated data around small farmers and women. There was a case study that was shared from Malawi, and I think Tangu is here in the room somewhere from Malawi, where it showed that, women wake up sometimes at 4, if not earlier, because they have to sort out the household, and then they have to leave by 6, head into the field. And they're in the fields pretty much the whole day and then come back. Now, let's talk about extension services. Extension services are sharing information on new seed, new approaches, etc., via radio. The woman has not carried her radio to the field. The radio is at home, and the man's listening. So she's not even aware of the innovation and the changes that's happening, etc. She's going on and she comes back, she's exhausted and has to. So we have to also realize the complexity of this space. How do we change that at the ground, and how do we share this kind of information? The power of integration. We all know that spaces like Indonesia, where peatland wetland systems have been degraded and fires have been raging, the implications on health, not just within Indonesia, beyond the borders of Indonesia, Malaysia, and they've actually shown statistically that children under the age of 5, be it in cities and villages, are suffering from asthmatic attacks, already showing what degradation can do. So how can we reverse that? There's a gentleman who mentions the issue of science and the importance of really the data in science, etc. Part of the reason the GLF is doing for the first time bringing culture keepers and traditional leaders is to also share the importance of traditional and indigenous knowledge systems. Who is that man, that woman, that pastoralist who tells you these birds used to exist here? We have not seen them in 10 years. That scientist is only coming once to collect that data. How is that synergistic point of sharing information from all these different sectors? So I think, let's face it, people, we do not have the luxury of time. When the IPCC report says we have just about less than 10 years before we tip over, this earth will recover without us. That's the reality. So for me, what we would do, I think as part of the consultation process, we are talking to everybody. And if you have to reach me by email, connect with my colleagues from FAO, we are speaking to everybody to really get an understanding what has been happening in your constituencies, what's happening. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Vatican, and I was speaking with the Vatican because they are consolidating, bringing together interfaith and indigenous peoples, because next year is going to be the anniversary of the Laudato Si. How do we involve your mosques, your churches, your constituencies, wherever your spaces of worship, be it even under a tree? How do we bring everybody together to be part of that change? And also, how do we celebrate? It's great to hear the drums outside, because part of our celebrations across Africa is around ceremonies. Even just the survival of a tree, the germination of grasslands is about celebration. We partnered with Just Dig It, and I think they've been here to have a concert in Amboseli, in a very dryland area in the Maasai community, where we were just celebrating the survival and germination of grass within this area. So we are trying to find innovative ways to showcase, to talk, to really share these experiences. Finally, but not the least, I think there was a counterpart who was talking about the issue of plastic. And I really want to challenge colleagues here in the House and also African countries. Rwanda, Kenya, they banned plastics. Why are other governments not learning from them? I was surprised when I was just trying to buy a bottle of water. The woman was forcing me to take the plastic bag. I said, no, but I have my bag. She said, no, but you can take it, it's okay. I said, no, it's not, because that's going to find itself into the sea, and we're finding more plastic than we're finding fish in the sea. So there's a challenge. This synergy, this cross-learning, these changes, this has to happen across Africa. If we don't really have the time, let's speak to another country that's done it for this change to happen. It's about community, and that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't want you to go, I know maybe you are hungry, okay? But I don't want you to go angry. There were some people who wanted really to speak, to talk, and I am really forced to end the session now. What to do, my brothers and my sisters? I hope really to apologize. There is only one person I could give the floor, but brief, because he had something to say. Just quickly, because you were just quickly. Yeah? You want to come? Come. We are inclusive. We are inclusive. Just 30 seconds, please.
Good morning. Bonjour. Good morning. Buongiorno. Etisan. Ojeko. Ojemla. Okay, my brothers and sisters, this we must start with language. Language is very important in our life. It helps us to communicate. Without language, we can't do anything. Without communication, we can't do anything. We talk, 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 talk. We don't have ears, they are not in the hall. We don't have eyes, they are not in the hall. We don't have hand in the hall. We don't have feet in the hall. Where they are? Who are ears? Ears are the leaders who must hear and put in act, in practice, what you are saying all these. Since yesterday. But we don't see them. See, where are the leaders here? Who want to act, who want to practice? Where they are? They are not there. They think about what? Chop, chop, stomach. Finish. One who suffer, they don't mind. You see, congratulations to Angela Merkel, who sent the minister. She's minister, she came from Germany. But those who are here, those who are in Ghana here, where are they are? So, my brothers and sisters, don't talk too much. She came from Malawi. See, distance. And one day, American ambassador in Ghana, she said, Ghana is becoming baller. She's right. Congratulations to her. She said the truth. What our leaders, they don't do anything. They don't say. So, my brothers and sisters, the problem is this. Prevention is better than cure. We are in Ghana here. My brothers, they talk about some issues in Ghana. One day we had one conference at the University of Ghana, Legon, about agriculture and climate change. Ask them, Akosombo Dam, water, they use it for only electricity or also agriculture. Lecturers, they told me that, Mr. Mohammed, Uru Salim Mohammed. My name is Mr. Uru Salim Mohammed, former researcher at the University of Ghana, Legon, before University of Lome, Togo, and graduated in international cooperation at Genoa University in Italy. So, what I told them, I asked them, they couldn't answer me, lectures on campus. And I say, we talk about climate change. What is the impact of climate change in Akosombo Dam? On Akosombo Dam? They say, Mr. Mohammed, this we'll see what we will say, but we try to look for something and say maybe next time. So, my brothers and sisters, what means this? What means this? These two examples means that we talk too much without doing without practicing, without putting in act. So, my brothers and sisters, we need leaders next time to be in front, to tell us why till now we don't reach any goal, any aim. My name again, Mr. Uru Salim Mohammed, former researcher at the University of Ghana, Legon, graduated in international cooperation at Genoa University. Arrivederci, ci vediamo dopo. Ale Karma.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I think you wrapped it up. You wrapped it up. All of you. I like this passion. Thank you so much for this passion for action, from leaders to local farmers, women, youth, men, everybody, private, policies, technical, financial partners, and so on. We need all of us together to ensure that this decade is not a dead decade, but a decade of life, of restoring hope in our action, of trust, of different stakeholders' roles, because one cannot do it alone. And I tell you, in my culture, in Algeria, we say, one hand cannot upload alone. So we need to make it all work together, and please, please continue to provide feedback, inputs, comments to our colleague Musonda, myself, through our platforms. We will be really wanting to hear more solutions and more recommendations from you. We are all ear. So thank you so much.
Thank you.